Okay, imagine this. A huge company, maybe one you use every day, suddenly announces a massive change.
Yeah, like a big strategic shift.
Exactly. Maybe they're bringing in new AI everywhere or, I don't know, moving their whole supply chain.
Big stuff.
So what's the first thing you think of? Is it the money? The new tech?
Or maybe something else.
Or do you stop and think about, the people involved,
Yeah.
the planet,
Yeah.
the communities? Because these huge shifts, they often hit way more than just the bottom line.
That's so true.
So today we're doing a deep dive into corporate social responsibility, CSR,
Mm-hmm.
especially when businesses are going through these big changes.
Right. And our insights, they're mostly drawn from leading change with social responsibility.
Which is a great resource. Really lays out those business obligations that go
Yeah.
beyond just ticking legal boxes.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to unpack how businesses can navigate these shifts.
And should navigate them.
Yes,
Yeah.
and should, while holding on to those crucial commitments, to people and the planet.
We want to arm you with the key insights, the practical things to consider for integrating CSR when everything's changing.
And maybe answer that question. Is it just a cost, or is it actually a competitive edge?
Okay, let's unpack this. CSR. We hear it a lot.
We do.
But what does it actually mean when a business is in the middle of a big transformation?
Well, the source defines it pretty clearly. It's about a business's obligations
Okay.
that are over and above its legal duties.
Like over and above.
To the well-being of, well, everyone involved. Employees, customers, shareholders, the community, the environment.
And that over and above part seems really key. It's not just what regulators demand.
No, exactly. It's about voluntarily stepping up, taking responsibility for your impact, socially and environmentally.
And this isn't exactly new, but the pressure seems to be mounting.
Oh, definitely. Over the last few decades, there's been this growing expectation for businesses to really improve their CSR game. It's not just a nice to have anymore.
So you can't just pause CSR when things get tough or when you're making big changes.
No way. The source really hammers this home. Whatever change is happening, a business has got to consider its CSR commitments. It's not like a side project.
It needs to be woven in, right? Fundamental to the change itself.
Absolutely. And there are real upsides to doing this. The source connects it directly to business benefits.
Like what? Better reputation.
Yeah, that's part of it. Customers are more likely to buy from and recommend businesses they see as socially responsible.
So, building loyalty.
It goes beyond just loyalty, though. The source talks about creating brand advocates, people who actively promote you, defend you even. That's huge, especially during change.
That makes sense. And it's not just about customers, is it? What about, attracting talent?
That's another big one. The source highlights that CSR helps attract top employees.
People want to work for good companies.
Exactly. People increasingly want their work to align with their values. And it attracts investors, too.
Investors, okay.
Yeah, strong CSR signals, stability, ethical leadership, a long-term view. It makes you look like a safer bet.
Okay, so it sounds great, win-win. But surely there's a cost involved sometimes. It can't all be easy.
No, you're right. We need to acknowledge the potential downsides. There often are costs.
Like what kind of cost?
Well, think about it. Maybe increased labor costs if you're ensuring fair wages everywhere.
Right.
Or higher material costs for sustainable stuff.
Right, or changing production processes.
Exactly. Prioritizing CSR might mean higher production costs initially. The source mentions companies seeing short-term profit dips after big sustainability investments.
Before the long-term benefits kick in.
Precisely. Things like better brand loyalty, more market share. It's a strategic investment, not just charity.
Okay, so we've got the big picture, the why, the potential costs. But CSR during change, it needs to be specific, right?
Totally. It's about understanding who is affected by the changes. You have to get granular.
So who are these key groups, these stakeholders that businesses need to focus on?
The source lays out several key ones. It's really an interconnected web. You've got the environment, obviously. Then employees and managers, customers are crucial. Suppliers. And the general community.
Each with different needs during a transformation.
Exactly. Different expectations.
Let's start with the environment. Seems like a really visible one. The source says businesses need to go above and beyond here.
Yeah, above and beyond just complying with regulations, reducing pollution, protecting wildlife, conserving resources.
It's that link between a healthy environment and, well, our quality of life.
Right, so businesses have this constant balancing act, especially during change. Economic needs versus environmental impact.
So Practically speaking, if a company like Woolworths, say, brings in new tech,
Hmm.
even if they're aiming for green energy goals, like 100% wind and solar.
Which they are, aiming for 2030, I think, plus carbon reduction and zero food waste to landfill by 2025.
Right, big goals.
Yeah.
But they still need to make sure that new tech itself isn't, causing new pollution or waste problems.
Absolutely. And the source digs into this. It's not just about the aim, it's about auditing the whole life cycle of that new tech.
Life cycle.
Yeah, from manufacturing to disposal, making sure you're not just shifting the environmental burden somewhere else.
That adds a whole layer of complexity. So what about changing inputs? Different materials, new facilities?
Same principle. You need to ensure they don't create hidden waste or environmental damage. Rigorous assessment is key.
And changing suppliers. How do you ensure the new ones are green? Or, ideally, local to cut transport emissions?
Well, the source uses Brambles as a great example, the logistics company operating as CHEP.
Ah, the pallet people.
That's them. They're highlighted as one of the most sustainable logistics companies globally. They have a strict environmental policy.
And they hold their partners to it.
They do. It's deeply integrated. The source mentions they put sustainability clauses in contracts, do regular audits, even offer training to help partners hit Brambles' own net zero goals by 2040.
Wow, so it's really proactive engagement.
Exactly, not just checking a box.
Okay, so from the planet, let's turn inward. To the people inside the company, employees and managers.
The heart of the business.
And the source really stresses their well-being, not just legally, but fundamentally. Why such a big emphasis there?
Because change is unsettling. An anxious or disengaged workforce, well, that can completely derail your plans.
Makes sense.
So if you bring in new tech or processes, you need to ensure safety, maintain equipment properly, and critically provide training and support so people can adapt.
But what about when change means job losses? New tech, downsizing, restructuring.
Yeah.
It happens.
It does. And that's where the socially responsible approach is vital. It's more than just giving notice.
What does that look like?
It means being transparent, providing clear timelines, explaining the redundancy process.
So managing expectations.
Yes, but also providing active support, offering proper outplacement services, help with resumes, interview skills, providing references.
Trying to soften the landing.
Definitely. And crucially, this source says exploring every option for redeployment first. Can people move to another part of the business? Keep their job security.
Because how you treat departing staff impacts everyone else.
Massively. It affects morale, trust in leadership, your reputation as an employer, long-term ripples. Seeing colleagues treated with dignity builds trust, even in uncertain times.
Right. Okay, moving outward again. Customers.
Yeah.
They're obviously vital.
Absolutely. And during change, the basics still apply. Products or services need to maintain quality, safety, reliability.
No cutting corners that lead to defective or harmful products.
Never. And beyond the product itself, how it's delivered needs to be fair and equitable.
And customers are watching this stuff now, aren't they?
Very closely. They're much more likely to buy from and recommend businesses known for being socially responsible. It builds a really resilient brand.
So communication is key.
Vital. Consumers today, they want authenticity. They want to engage with brands trying to do good.
So businesses need to talk about their CSR efforts, like in sustainability reports.
Yes, and explain how change might impact those efforts. Be open about it. It's almost like a partnership.
Partnership. That's interesting.
Yeah, and H&M is a good example here. Remember their Conscious collection?
Vaguely, yeah. Made from recycled materials.
Recycled materials, organic cotton. They specifically invited customers to participate by choosing those options. It allows the customer to be part of the CSR effort.
Makes the customer feel involved. Okay, next stakeholder group. Suppliers. Change can really shake things up for them.
It definitely can. Whether you're changing suppliers or your own operations impact them.
So what's the CSR angle here? Sourcing locally.
That's a big part of it, yeah. The source highlights sourcing locally as socially responsible, creates jobs, boosts the local economy.
But beyond local, what if your suppliers aren't quite up to your CSR standards?
Then the responsible thing, according to the source, is to help them improve. Maybe work with them to set up a code of ethics or a sustainability policy.
So lifting the whole supply chain.
That's the idea. Build a responsible network. And this gets really important with global supply chains.
Yes. Ensuring workers overseas aren't exploited.
Exactly. Fair wages, decent working conditions. You need to work with new suppliers to ensure they meet those socially responsible guidelines.
And maintain ethical standards in how you choose them, right? No funny business.
Absolutely. The source explicitly warns against preferential treatment based on gifts, free meals, trips, or just personal friendships. It has to be based on merit and ethical practice.
Keeps the playing field level. Okay, last group, the general community.
The wider impact.
Businesses need to think about how their changes affect everyone around them.
Yes, society expects accountability now. When a business changes, the community expects them to consider the environmental impact locally.
Like not increasing pollution from a new factory.
Right. And they generally prefer businesses to use local suppliers, again, for the local jobs and economy. It's about being a good corporate citizen.
And workforce impacts. Same expectations as for employees.
Pretty much. The community generally prefers redeployment over redundancies. If job cuts are unavoidable, they expect clear communication and sensitivity to the transition issues for those affected. Transparency again.
It all seems to tie back to being open, responsible, and considering the ripple effects.
That's a good way to put it.
So let's look at a company pulling all this together. The source points to CSL, the Australian biotech firm.
Yeah, as a really solid contemporary example of integrated CSR.
What makes them stand out?
Well, they have this comprehensive global environment, health, safety, and sustainability policy. And it's not just words on paper.
It translates into action.
It does. It commits them to a positive, safe, healthy work culture.
Huh.
But it also sets concrete goals. Conserve resources, cut emissions, prevent pollution, reduce, reuse, recycle waste.
Practical targets.
Right. And the source gives an example. Their waste reduction goal led them to create a closed-loop system for manufacturing byproducts. Turning waste into raw materials for others, that's policy driving real circular economy action.
That's impressive, taking it beyond just compliance.
Exactly. And it extends to their suppliers, too.
How so?
They have an active supplier management program. New and existing suppliers have to demonstrate they share CSL's commitment to environmental management, product safety, fair workplaces, community involvement.
So they're holding their partners accountable to the same high standards.
They are.
Yeah.
Building that whole network of shared responsibility we talked about.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, the main takeaway seems pretty clear. Thinking about CSR during change isn't like an optional extra.
No, it's fundamental, an obligation, really, but also potentially a strategic advantage.
Businesses just have to consider their impact on everyone. Environment, employees, customers, suppliers, the community, all of them.
It's about seeing the whole ecosystem, not just the business in isolation, building a sustainable future for everyone involved.
It really is.
Oh?
Which leads us to our final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. How can businesses truly shift their mindset so that corporate social responsibility isn't just seen as a cost center, but as, an essential part of innovation itself, and maybe even a real competitive advantage in this constantly changing world?